Episode 13, Carl Thompson versus the Washburn N4. This episode is dedicated to Sarah Sporletter, Chris Wright, Gil Harrington, Nate Simonson, and Tristan Moore. Why are electric bass players more open-minded to new instrument innovations versus electric guitarists? The reason for the question? There seems to be many more bass guitar design variations than electric guitars. Please note, this analysis is about a professional, as a musician's take on things. Now, the term professional, per Oxford Learner's Dictionary, it's a person who does a job that needs special training and a high level of education. If you ask Paul Kuhn at sweetwater.com, he's one of the sales engineers out there, about student versions of electric bass and guitar sales metrics, I'm sure it would skew towards whomever advertises the most, Gibson, Fender, anything. Let's do some comparisons between the two. Look at the bass guitar. It's a 1940s to 50s invention, if you will. It's derived from the double bass. It's normally tuned in fourths, and you can play it a bit more sloppily compared to a guitar because of the lower frequencies of the bass guitar versus the electric guitar. And one interesting innovation is basically adding 2 strings to each string for a total of 12 strings. Jeremy, that's by Pearl Jam. I think Jeff Ament used the Hammer B12A for that recording. Sonically speaking, the bass guitar functions as a bridge, a musical or sonic bridge between percussion and melody. Some great examples of this include Stuart Zenzer of Jamiroquai, and I think he got replaced by, I forget who replaced him, but he went off to do his own thing. David Ellefson of Megadeth, Nikki Sixx not just of the Motley Crue fame, but also he has his own radio shows too. Mark King of Level 42. Occasionally, the instrument bleeds over into solo parts of music or songs. Stu Hamm's contribution to Joe Satriani music, Billy Sheehan with Mr. Big. And it's not just about virtuosos, it's basically about having the opportunity, the musical space to essentially improvise a little bit. And rarely this is the instrument that functions as a central instrument of the music. Now, if you're thinking instrumentals, there are some exceptions. Les Claypool of Primus fame, Les Claypool is also referred to as a colonel, I don't know why. Just listen to the song called Jerry Was a Race Car Driver. Michael Manring, his album called Funk. Listen to a song called The Enormous Room. Some other technological innovations include the Novak's fan fret system. The shorter version is the higher frequency, strings that are tuned to higher frequencies. They're shorter than the lower strings. It's basically taking the piano as a piano tuning method, if you will, and applying it to the bass guitar, and in some cases the electric guitar too, for the sake of achieving the perfect or the ideal intonation. And the hip shot detuner. It's one of those things where you just basically flick a switch on the tuning head in order to change the tuning of the string. I want to say anywhere between half to 1.5 steps downward or upwards. Another interesting innovation, I can't really say that this is a bass guitar kind of a thing, because it tries to accomplish a lot in one small space. The Chapman stick. This is popularized by Tony Levin. Tony Levin he's a bass player famous for his works with Peter Gabriel touring. Yes, that's right, Peter Gabriel, the guy famous for the Salisbury Hill song, written in 7/4 time. Joe Zahn and his hyper bass guitar. Think about this. Michael Manring, the guy famous for the Funk album, basically takes his wishes and convinces Joe Zahn to throw everything including the kitchen sink, into a bass guitar, so that you have 36 frets in theory because it's fretless, 4 independent outputs, and I don't want to say each string has its own pickup, if you will. It's fun to play, but it can be overwhelming if you try to use all the bells and whistles. Some popular brands, you've got the Rickenbacker, the 4003 series, the Fender Precision, Jackson, the bass that, I forget which, it looks like the Soloist because it's a neck-through design. David Ellefson made it very popular with Megadeth. Gibson Thunderbird, yes, with the Alnico pickups. Ibanez Soundgear series, and then the Yamaha Attitude series as well. Bass guitar is a little bit more tricky because the lower the sound frequencies are, the harder it is to take the sound and basically add different kinds of special effects that are immediately noticeable. Even if you're wondering why, go talk to a physicist or a physicist who has a good understanding of the physics of music. Thank you, Dr. Warren Rogers. Look at the bass guitar. Because the neck scale is longer than an electric guitar, usually it's in the low to mid to high 30-inch scale. You got more real estate to add more bells and whistles, tone pots, switches, extra pickups, and so forth. Designs. Some bass guitars, such as bass guitars made by Carl Thompson, as well as Warwick, they have a lot more curls and curves. When I say curls, look at these. Look at the bass guitar that Les Claypool plays on the "Jerry Was a Race Car Driver" song. And then Warwick, look at the bass. I want to say it's the Dolphin or the Thumb that Jack Bruce plays. Jack Bruce of the Cream fame. You really didn't have, a popular figure like an instrument hero, if you will, for the bass until the 70s. And this is a separate topic, filled with speculation, subjective opinions. From the 70s, you had Gene Simmons of Kiss. Okay, that's more performance, obviously, but I Want to Rock and Roll all night and party every day. It's a great bass line because it's accessible to a lot of people. Chris Squire of Yes fame. Yes, he plays a Rickenbacker, unlike Gene Simmons with BC Rich Anything. But Chris Squire, he basically took the Rickenbacker and he was able to have the tone just stand out amongst all the different virtuoso instruments, plus the vocalist of the band Yes, especially on the album Fragile. Yes, right, it's the album with the song Roundabout on it, as well as Cans and Brown. Cans and Browns was a keyboard thing. Overall, you have more professional bass players who tour to support a variety of styles. You've got Mark Egan. You also have, Lee or Leland Skylar. I think he's toured this. And then, if you think about it, if the bass guitar functions as a bridge between melody and percussion, it's almost universal to the point where you're going to have that bass music be more prevalent in anywhere between rock to country to pop to hip hop and a bunch of other styles that I'm just ignorant of, including acid jazz. Let's look at electric guitar. It was originally a Rickenbacker / Washburn invention. Normally, it's a 6-string kind of an instrument. Occasionally, you'll have instruments that have 7 strings, thanks to Steve Vai, and 12 strings. Not like the 12-string hammer B12A. We're talking about doubling each string space, if you will. So think Robert Smith of The Cure, especially the song called, Just Like Heaven. The instrument is fretted normally, unlike some fretless bass guitars, because a fretless guitar, it just doesn't have the same kind of tone. And I think Frank Zappa may have commented on this in a Guitar World magazine interview well before he passed away. Normally, standard tuning is used, and occasionally you have a drop D tuning. And then it's usually used for solos, for the solo parts of songs in rock bands. Think of Slash, aka Saul Hudson he started with Guns N' Roses, and then he had a Slash's Pit, or the Snake Pit, and then his tour with Miles Kennedy, and then Nuno Bettencourt of Extreme. As far as innovations go, Gibson actually tried to incorporate an automatic tuning system into the Les Paul. Didn't Jimmy Page champion this as part of the advertising series in the early to late 1990s? it didn't really catch on. You also have the buzz fight and tuning system, which is very popular also with the Washburn N4 neck these days. That's also about achieving that intonation. There's also locking tuners, headless necks, stainless frets, thanks to Ness Steinberger, popularized by the band Mike and Mechanics. Look for a song called The Living Years. As far as popular brands go, this is more of a narrow list because it's primarily Gibson, Fender, and the Ibanez series. Beatles, they also had the Rickenbacker. Eric Clapton, he also popularized the Gibson SG as well as the Fender Stratocaster. That's right, that single coil sound. Les Paul with, the Les Paul. Effects pedals, there's a lot more effects pedals out there. Whether it's distortion, chorus, wah-wah. However, some professional guitarists, such as Lenny Kravitz, they end up collecting actual guitars and amps for specific sounds because they have the money to do so. And so what this means is there's more effects pedals out there for the people who can't afford to collect a guitar for every single sound. And this applies to lead guitars such as Danny Spitz of Anthrax, not necessarily to rhythm guitars such as Scott Ian of Anthrax and also Malcolm Young of AC/DC. You don't have as many professional guitar players touring or supporting other bands outside of the genre. Well, one exception would be Nuno Bettencourt touring with Rihanna for a few years. So when you think about it, bass players, heroes, they used unique designs, not just the Rickenbacker, but also the BC Rich, as well as the Ernie Ball, Music Man. While guitar players had the magical, let's say, tube tone coming from a Les Paul or a Stratocaster plugged into a Marshall or a Fender amplifier. And this is not really true anymore because you have some exceptions such as Steve Vai with his Ibanez Gem series, Nuno Bettencourt with his Washburn N4, Stevens Extended Cutaway, as well as the Bill Lawrence L500 pickup. Yes, it sounds awesome. And then you've got Red Beach with his Ibanez guitar, where one part of the tail of the body seems to be missing. Bass also has more opportunities to sonically show up in different parts of music, because it can produce percussion and also some parts of melody thanks to the solo contributions across many genres. Guitarists, they get involved with percussion mainly in disco, the chicken scratch sound or the waka waka sound, as well as acid jazz. And well, there is one exception. Extreme with his funk metal song, Get the Funk Out. How popular are bass players, or how prominent are bass players in other venues outside of the traditional music circuit? Well, let's look at Hollywood. In Hollywood, professional bass players, you got Keanu Reeves, Jason Momoa. Keanu Reeves, it was a band called Dogstar, as I recall. Ryan Gosling, Gary Sinise with the Lieutenant Dan Band, as well as, believe it or not, from The Cosby Show, Malcolm Jamal Warner. My personal favorite would have to be Keanu Reeves. And then, let's see, professional guitar players who are part of the Hollywood scene, Johnny Depp, Hollywood Vampires, Adam Sandler with the Hanukkah song, as well as Jack Black. Yeah, I'll just leave it alone at that point. Brings another question then to mind. Why don't guitar players want modern technology? Well, if you think about it, if you have the option, why adopt new technology? The professional seems to get enough money, either by endorsements or by album sales, to buy vintage stuff for the vintage tone, such as Les Paul, 1959 Les Paul, Marshall half stack or full stack. They have the money, so they have the ability to just basically get the real deal, the original deal that they want because they can. Sort of like as rich people who decide to pay $1 million for a custom-made mechanical or an automatic wristwatch. They do exist. Okay, so then why do bass players go for the modern technology? If you think about it, the modern tone professionals, these professionals who are all about making a tone applicable for different musical scenes. They seem to get enough money to either by endorsements or album sales to experiment with their different designs, such as Tony Levin and the Chapman stick, Michael Manring with his hyperbass. Because you have to keep in mind, Michael Manring, he also did play bass for disco bands too. Just ask him. Overall conclusion here is, innovations aside, professional bass players, they have more genres to listen to and work to. After all, not all pop music employs electric guitarists. Alright, here's a Kevin Bacon game. From Maxwell's equations and Faraday's law to Adolf Rickenbacker's magnetic pickups and Gibson/Fender/Rickenbacker popularizing electric instruments tuned in fourths by 3 degrees of separation, the Americans couldn't make good music such as the British invasion without the British. Thanks. Until next time.